We all hunkered down to exams, but it was hard to give a good goddamn, because the tunes that were playing on the radio kept saying the system's all rigged, it's a sham. Newsflash people, things were heating up as summer was just around the corner, and the top 10 was interesting in a good way. Let's check out the week ending October 25, 1981. Commencing with the segment which first taught the Casbah how to rock. Hello and goodbye! Where we say hi to the new records in this week's top 10 and look back at those leaving. And the only newcomer this week is Adam and the Ants, in at number 9 with Prince Charming. Up from 11 last week, this one spent 6 weeks in the top 10 and peaked at number 4. Dropping out is Marsha Hines with Your Love Still Brings Me to My Knees, which drops from 10 to 13 after its one and only week in the top 10. Your Love is an old Dusty Springfield number which he cut first in 1972, then re-recorded in 1977 and finally got about to releasing in 1980. Marsha is fine and all, but she is no Dusty Springfield, a point not unnecessarily overlaboured in previous editions of this program. The biggest hit entering the charts this week wasn't that much of a hit. It's well remembered, but not really as a hit. The theme from Chariots of Fire by Vangelis. So much was it a not hit, it only got as high as number 32, and it's the only entry this week that would be well known enough to qualify for the trade-up segment. Right across the top 50 it would be very static, and it being too soon for the big Christmas releases, there wasn't that much being crowded out. The biggest hit leaving the charts this week was Planet Earth, the debut from Duran Duran, which had peaked at number 8. The next number 1 arrived on November 8, Wino Out Whenever Timely by Bill Flybees. At number 10, down from 8 last week, is If I Were a Carpenter by Swanee. Now, Swanee is John Swan, the older brother of Cold Chisel frontman Jimmy Barnes. Swan was considered the odds-on favourite not long previously to replace Bon Scott in AC/DC. Swan, a Glaswegian, was very good friends with George and Malcolm Young, and Swan was pretty much considered a lock for the gig. He'd also previously replaced Scott in his earlier band Fraternity, and there was no doubt that he had the pipes. But AC/DC went with Brian Johnson. How Swanee was bumped out of the drop seat, no one will ever know. Carp got as high as 5 and hung about for a few weeks, and Swan managed a few other hits after it, including a number 1 as lead singer of the Party Boys in 1985 with He's Gonna Step on You Again. 9, as we mentioned, is Adam and the Ants with the title track of their third album, Prince Charming. It was a bit of a case of diminishing returns for A and the A's, who couldn't really capitalise on their last album, the quirky and energetic Kings of the Wild Frontier. The band broke up shortly after this, and Adam continued solo, hitting number 1 with Goody Two Shoes, but by the time of a bewildering performance at Live Aid in 1985, his career seemed to have fizzled. It was a pity. He seemed to be onto something with this hypervisual glam rock mutation, but like glam, it was never built to last. And it strikes me that outside of the Wild Frontier record, there's just not that much to remember too warmly. It was nice from a pop culture perspective, however, to see Diana Dawes in the video for Prince Charming. In German, they do have some very strange words indeed. Erklagenschnitt, which is the state of not being able to talk your way out of a situation, or Kummerspeck, which is sadness bacon, food you eat for comfort, or Geheimnisvolach, the mysterious void that hovers between 7 and 9. This week, the occupant is... shit. You write all this build-up to do a bit, and it turns out that the record is I Won't Let You Down by PhD, the most nondescript piece of fluff. It's just pointless. Well, this is a clear case of a Klageschnitt, isn't it? 17 weeks on the charts for a top of 5, and half this week's chart got no higher than number 4. It just seems to be a cluster of mid-level records making their way up and hanging around. A fortnight from now it'll be 5 in, 5 out, and we'll see records like Wired for Sound, Love in Motion, The Sunny Boys, Wonderful, Alone with You, Boys in Town by the Divinals, and The Police, In Excess, Queen and David Bowie all come into the charts as all those Christmas releases start to come in. But I Won't Let You Down doesn't deserve to be mentioned in such vaulted company, and in fact the singer on this, Jim Diamond, gets his own solo savaging in TRB 39. 7. At last, at 7, it is the young lady who would claim Dusty Springfield's title as the biggest-selling English female solo act, Kim Wilde, with her lively and rather fun Checkered Love. Wilde was the proto-Kylie, I guess, and this was the follow-up to her big debut, Kids in America, and was, I think, better than it. 4 top 10s from the jump from KW, and this one was already on its way down after a peak of 6. She apparently presents gardening shows on TV nowadays, which is nice. Well, we're 1,000 words in and we're only at number 6. And it's You Drive Me Crazy by Shakin' Stevens, a song I do not remember in the slightest, and having heard it, still have no impression of it. I contacted my little sister, and she tells me it was a big hit. 3 weeks at number 1 would tend to confirm her assessment, but I just don't see the point of it. It's not flashy and exciting like Checkered Love. It's not so awfully banal like Let You Down. It isn't even loud and moronic like Adam Ant. I figure he's just a bloke with a look and a novelty sound that caught on, judging by his long list of hit singles, and he made a decent living out of doing it, and good for him. 3 weeks at number 1, 17 on the charts all up, and a few good hits to come. Maybe Little Sister is onto something. 5 sees Electric Light Orchestra with Hold On Tight, lead singer from their number 2 album, Time. A really interesting record, more so than much of their other work, but this one was at the end of the line for them as a dominant pop group that they'd been since On the Third Day back in 1973. I remember being disappointed a bit with this. It sounded very dry and perfunctory next to the singles from the previous year's Xanadu, I'm Alive or All Over the World, and it really is the outlier on the album, which is quirky and proggy and very 1981. 5 was as good as it got, but 19 weeks on the charts was a pretty long run for this cohort of records. Yeah, nah, let's not do the trade up this week. Again, there wasn't a lot on the charts that didn't get a show in the top 10, and that which wouldn't have enriched it much, so let's go straight to number 4. And I bet you glad we did, because it's the Rolling Stones, who were even then attracting jibes at their age, creakiness, and how cadaverous Keith Richards looked. Start Me Up was just getting started up on a climb that would take it to number 1 for a week in mid-November. The Stones' last of 6 number 1s and their second to last top 10, only the underrated Harlem Shuffle remained for them, before they retreated to the strange world of only semi-relevance that they dwell into this very day. 3 is Jonah Louie with Louise, a sort of merry-go-round music of a song, which was his third and final hit, peaking as did the previous Stop the Cavalry at number 2. It held out for 18 weeks on the chart, and it seems that Louis, who was a highly accomplished blues and boogie-woogie piano player, worked out that this pop star lark just wasn't for him, and he went back to his first love, the doity-doity blues. The VP of the top 10 this week is one of the genuine eccentrics, not only of this week, but of all of the weeks we've ever or will ever present in this series. Billy Field was a middling musician who poked around on the fringes of the Sydney scene for a few years and set up his own studio in Woolloomooloo. That's what was then a wharf complex warehousey type area on the fringes of the CBD. If you walk through the park that abuts it, you'd come out at the Sydney Opera House, where bands like In Excess, Cold Chisel, Icehouse, Men at Work and even Air Supply all made big albums there, with Field working either as convivial host, an engineer, or playing whatever he needed to play when required. He became a very popular figure on the scene. In 1981, he took it upon himself to record a single, Bad Habits, almost as a joke for his more famous friends, who loved it and pushed it to the producers of the Sunday night pop music show Countdown. And Countdown loved nothing more than to take unknown Australian acts and make them stars. So Field made a video, which was really more of an ad for his studio, and Countdown started to feature it. The thing about Bad Habits was, A, there was nothing like it on the charts, and there had never been anything like it on the charts for many, many years, and B, it was ridiculously catchy. So, of course, it was a big hit, getting to number 4. You Weren't in Love with Me, 253 words, and now I say the title of this week's number 2, was performing sluggishly on the charts until Field appeared in person on Countdown and, in a rare exception to show policy, played the song live. It went from 8 to 2 nationally, 7 to 1 in Brisbane, and hit number 1 on November the 8th. There were 4 number 1s in 4 weeks in November. The current number 1, Billy, Start Me Up, and Olivia Newton-John's Physical, which then had a good run at the top. Billy's next album, Try Biology, was more pop-oriented, and the single True Love, which was pretty good, only made 17. So Billy went back to behind the desk, where he remains to this day, his studio paradise having moved up to Gosford about 20 years ago. Oh, facts. Well, the King of Hearts is the only king in a standard deck without a mustache. Mulan has the highest personal kill count of any Disney film character. The adjective lemniscate describes an item in the shape of an infinity symbol, and the verb to lemniscate means to decorate something with a ribbon. Well, that's all worthless information, isn't it? Well, here are some facts you can take to the bank. It's Val's Fantastic World of Fact. Biggest up star this week is the fantastic Pat Benatar with Fire and Ice, up 14 places to number 32. That girl could sing. Tumbling down is the former top 5 hit Only for Sheep by The Bureau, a band that only seemed to have any success in Australia and to a lesser extent Canada. which fell 9 places to number 44. Highest debutante this week was Chariots of Fire by Vangelis, which came in at 46 and only laboured as high as 32. While the longest lingering jingle on the charts was the former number 1 Devo Live EP, which had racked up 20 weeks and was still sitting inside the top 30. In the USA, the number 1 hit was a song written in part by Aussie legend and top bloke Peter Allen, Arthur's Theme by Christopher Cross, while in the anarchic UK, it was It's My Party by Dave Stewart and Barbara Gaskin, on top for the third week 4. This one's featured here before, making number 4 in edition 33. 1 year ago, the top of the pop bopsters was Leo Sayer, whose More Than I Can Say has freshly dispatched Diana Ross's Upside Down from top spot. Diana Ross, hold on to that name for a moment. Now, next year would see Eye of the Tiger by Survivor on top for the 5th of its 6 weeks. And the number 1 album About Town was the Rolling Stones with Tattoo You, the 5th of their 8 so far number 1 albums, and it spent a whopping 11 weeks on top. Stones fans, where does Tattoo You fit on your personal hierarchy of Stones albums? I'm a bit ambivalent on it myself, but what do I know? And now here's the rocking primate the state could not incarcerate, drumming us into number 1. It's Monty the Safety Monkey. Number 1 this week is Endless Love by Diana Ross. Told you to remember that name. And the then up-and-coming Lionel Richie. Hard as it may be to accept this decidedly mid-love ballad, which featured in a film which made Tom Cruise a big star, if not a tall one, is the biggest-selling single ever on Motown. Lionel Richie actually features on 5 of the 10 biggest selling Motown singles ever. Diana Ross is on 2, the other 3 see Marvin Gaye hold 2 and the Jackson 5 1 spot. It's like I say to Lionel all the time, there's no telling how far a well-groomed moustache can get you. Well, it has spent all up 4 weeks on top here, 9 weeks in the US. I've amused myself. This being the third of its stay, before Billy Field's almost equally soppy ballad did for it. Well, good burgers of wherever you are, that is how the cow ate the cabbage this week. And, as ever, if the good lords are willing and the creeks don't rise, we'll be back with a new instalment next week-ish. And don't forget to stay around for the solution to the puzzle.
But you will always find him in the kitchen at parties.
Please release me, let me go. Well, pussycat, den and Rome, I do as the Romans, disregard the signs and the omens. When the sun hangs low in the west and the light in my...
I had to have this talk with you. My happiness depends on you and whatever you decide to do, Jolene. They said